Okay, Rick Miller, this is exciting. We're going to have a great conversation here because we're going to talk more specifically today about Provincetown, which is where you live and work.
I love Provincetown.
Yeah, everyone loves Provincetown.
That's true.
But specifically, what I'm finding really interesting to think about is that you live here and you're a psychotherapist here,
Ooh, yeah.
which isn't like any other business. You know, people can see the person that works at the corner market and it's pretty much the same person, but you've got a different relationship with your therapist.
Yes.
And a therapist has a different relationship with the clients. But you all live in the same place.
Yeah.
I'm finding that fascinating. I'd love to talk with you some about that
Let
today.
me say something about that already, which is that I came to Provincetown like everyone else, to have some fun, to go to the beach, to go out, and I hated leaving every single September because I loved it here. So someone said to me, why don't you start a practice in Provincetown?
Right.
And if you start your practice in the spring and you have clients by the fall, you can stay here year round. So that's what I did about 25 years ago, and that's how I started my practice. Guess what? My relationship with Provincetown has changed as a result of that. Because after 25 years, you can imagine the number of people that I've worked with, the number of themes that pass through my office each day, and Provincetown is a very different place to me as a result. Still beautiful, still amazing. I can't not live here. Every time I pull into town and I go over the crest of the hill and I see town in the distance, I love it.
It's still very exciting, but exciting in a different way,
Yes.
I would think.
Yes.
So what are some of the challenges inherent in being a psychotherapist in the community where you live and running into people in social situations or at the market? What is that like?
Well, so one of the challenges is that psychotherapists are used to having privacy in their lives, and they do their work and then they live their lives in private, and there isn't the exposure that takes place in Provincetown. And, we all live in Provincetown and learn to navigate different roles simultaneously. But in my field, we're taught that we're not supposed to socialize with our clients, we're not supposed to frequent their businesses, they're not supposed to see what we buy at the grocery store. Life is separate, but it isn't separate at all. So over the years, it's been a struggle and something that I've gotten comfortable with, which is the meshing of my personal life with my professional life.
Does that inform the way that you deal with people? Do you say to a new client, for example, all right, here's some ground rules for when we see each other in public?
Yes. So a couple things. One is that frequently I already know people that want to work with me.
Right.
And I've had friends that say, can I see you? Sometimes I say, I can't see you, you're my friend. I've had people that have come to my house for parties, or I've been to their house for parties that I don't know that well, and I figure, well, I don't know them well enough that I actually can see them, but it means that we can't be friends. And what I run through with people is that when I run into you in public, not if I run into you, but when I run into you,
it's gonna happen.
Always say hello to you. I'll have conversations about the weather, superficial things, but I won't talk about the work that you're doing here in my office.
Right, that makes sense. The other thing that I think about when I think about you specifically as a psychotherapist in Provincetown and the way other people experience Provincetown is that you must have this amazingly layered view of the community.
I do.
You've got a different view of the community than those who just have a little bit of, I know people who come to my shop, or I know people who go to the library. You know people all throughout all the different strata of life in Provincetown. So how does that inform your vision of the place where you live?
Well, it's a multi-layer vision, and sometimes it's painful. Provincetown, the place of beauty where I came to have a lot of fun, is now a place, as I said, that's multi-layered with dark sides and truths and struggles and pain and a loss of innocence. And so for me, I don't know whether that loss of innocence has come with aging or being a therapist in a small town and hearing the truth about people's lives and what truths have come up as a result of living in this town. Obviously, it's both.
And you must see how people's lives intersect. I'm sure you've got people in your practice who reference
Yes.
other people who are in your
Constantly.
practice, and you can't say, oh, that's
Right.
not what he said about you.
It's interesting about how I can conceal that on my face. And sometimes I wonder, oh my God, what do my eyes say in this moment? Are my cheeks turning red? Can they figure this out? I had a client like 15, 20 years ago that had a crush on several men in town, and they were all my other clients. And he would come in and he would be in love with them for a week or two, and I would just sit still, don't give it away. And every week he would pass one of the men that he had a crush on Route 6 when he was going home from Truro, from my office to Provincetown. And he figured it out about 5 or 6 weeks into it, that this person was on Route 6 at the exact same time. He must have been going to my office. So he figured out that the man that he was coming in and talking about was my next client.
I cannot imagine what that felt like.
It was unusual, to say the least.
One of the other things I'm interested in is whether you think that some of these things we've been talking about would be true in any small town, or are they really specific to Provincetown in some way?
I think that they are true in any small town, for sure. What makes Provincetown unique is that we're surrounded by ocean on 3 sides. So it's not a small town in the middle of other places. It's the end of the world, and it's beautiful and compelling, and everyone has a story about why they came to Provincetown. People don't choose to live in Provincetown unless there's a reason. So that's one thing that makes Provincetown different. The other thing that makes Provincetown different is that it's so quiet in the wintertime, and there's a lack of continuity between the seasons, and it's so stormy and different that there isn't a consistency like other places. So those things make Provincetown really unique, very difficult to live here. I've been here for about 25 years as a full-time person. I've been coming for about 30 years or so, and the demographics have changed, and fewer people are here in the wintertime, which is really sad because it's an amazing place.
Well, I was going to ask you about the demographics because of it being a resort town. And
Yes.
as you say, there's a huge difference, not just in the weather from winter to summer, but also in the number of the population
Yes.
and certainly the kinds of people,
Yes.
because, we've got this influx of tourists.
Yes.
Do you get a lot of different people in the summer coming to your
I do.
practice, or do you find that people don't do that as much when they're on
No, I
extended
get a lot of
vacation?
people here in the summertime who want to continue their therapy, and they take a leave of absence from their therapist from wherever they live, and they see me here during the summertime. And some of those people have been doing that with me for years. Sometimes people just do it, every now and then while they're here. But you just reminded me of a story. When I was living in Provincetown, I would walk my dog by this woman's house, and she was always outside clipping her roses in the late afternoon, and she always had a cigarette butt sticking out of her mouth, always. And one day she turned to me and my partner, she said, "Those assholes still in town?" And she was talking about the guys on vacation. And if she said it to anyone else that didn't live here, they'd be offended, but we just laughed. We got it. And then the other line that people say is, "Are you here for your week?" People come here for a week, and the assumption is that you're here for your week. And of course, living here all these years, it's such a different experience. And of course, being a psychotherapist here, it's an even different experience, because I also have a practice in Boston. I get people coming to see me after their week because they're depressed, because they're lonely, because they didn't meet the man of their dreams, and they didn't feel like they measured up with the gay community and the others that are here.
Interesting. So there are a lot of similarities with other small towns and with other resort towns, but kind of they all merge together here in Provincetown.
And Provincetown has a feeling all of its own. As I said, we're surrounded by ocean. We have the national seashore. We have the beauty. We have the stormy skies and the sea. And it's so compelling. No matter where I travel, whenever I come back here, I think, thank God I live here. I'm so lucky.
And you can see why people are depressed when they have to leave.
Yes. But I always say to people, come here off season if you think about living here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Rick Miller, if people want to learn more about you, where do they go?
Go to rickmiller.biz.
And thanks for talking with us today
Thank you.
about practicing in Provincetown.
Sure.